Mark Carney accidentally let slip that a pipeline project is going to happen. And then he immediately tried to walk it back. Or was it an accident? I'm Steve Sandford, you're watching Dominion Report. Later in this video, I'm going to sneak preview an upcoming one, which is actually quite related to this one, and I think you might be interested in it, so stand by for that. At an armchair interview event last week for a Bay Street audience hosted in the Canadian Club Toronto, Mark Carney made an apparent gaffe. He was answering a question about a potential pipeline project, and he actually said, "Don't worry, we're on the pipeline stuff. Danielle's on line one, don't worry, this is going to happen." This is going to happen. Now, he actually immediately walked it back a little bit. He said, well, something's going to happen, let's put it that way. And he went on to joke about undermining his own bargaining position. Most legacy media coverage of this comment focused on how Carney accidentally let this slip, which might be true. But what if he didn't? What if he let it slip accidentally on purpose? No matter what your opinion is of Carney, nobody credible is accusing him of being stupid. And since I've been paying attention, I've observed him to be especially careful with his wording. Now, a bit of a side note here, sometimes his facial expressions give away what he's actually thinking, and that can be entertaining at times, especially when he's meeting with, shall we say, certain world leaders. But he's always been calculated with his words. And so now that I've thought about this for a while, I can only speculate that this pipeline comment perhaps wasn't a gaffe, but instead was actually a signal that was made to look like a gaffe. So what do politicians actually signal when they do something like this? Well, there's a few options. Sometimes it's a trial balloon. You just throw something out there, see what kind of reaction the idea gets in the press, and go from there. But I don't think this is the case here. Now, it could be strategic signaling to the business community. Let them think the pipeline's a done deal and hope that encourages continued investment into the Canadian energy sector. Maybe also foster general optimism in Canadian stock markets as a whole. This one is, shall we say, plausible, although it does seem like a bit of a vague goal for such a specific comment. Maybe it was part of a longer-term plan to get Canadians more used to the idea of a new pipeline. More specifically, those opposed to the pipeline to be more resigned to the idea. So there's less resistance when one is more formally announced later. And this is the signal that I actually would have suggested is most likely, and would have suggested. But then I had a conversation with a viewer. Now, before I get to that, allow me to ask you to hit the like button on the video. I do appreciate it. So one of the great things about this channel is that you viewers are super engaged and super smart. And I've had so many great conversations. So I was in touch with a viewer, and if you're watching, you know who you are. And he shared with me another theory, one that actually makes a lot of sense. So let me explain. Last week we saw Conservative MP Chris d'Entremont cross the floor to join the Liberals. And another MP was rumored to be about to cross, but ended up resigning from his position. That's from his seat in government and the CPC caucus. And still there's lingering speculation about other Conservative MPs potentially also crossing the floor. Now I have a video that covers those events in detail, and I'll put the link below if you want to watch it. But let's take a step back and think about this from Mark Carney's point of view. If you're trying to entice Conservative MPs over to your side, and that's because you really want a majority government, who are you going to target? Well, first, you're going to start by looking at MPs from ridings that, in the last election, had plenty of Liberal votes, but a narrow Conservative victory. So that means most likely a urban or suburban riding. Next, you're going to think about which MPs are more about actual Conservative policy than they are about performative outrage, and who might be disillusioned by the current style of the CBC leadership, as Chris d'Entremont says that he was before he crossed. And further, you're going to look for an MP who would appreciate an infrastructure mega project in their own backyard. That's something that's good for jobs, good for their local economy, and frankly, for that MP's chances of re-election. So we have more or less just described Edmonton MP Matt General. That's the guy who was allegedly about to cross the floor, but instead ended up resigning. So with regard to Carney's pipeline comment, this theory tracks. Letting slip the finality of a pipeline project that isn't actually official is exactly what Carney might do if he was, at that time, trying to encourage General to cross the floor and become a Liberal. or maybe others as well. Now, do we know that this is what happened as a fact? Of course not. This is pure speculation. But it's speculation that forms a theory that really does make perfect sense. For us to actually find out, we'll probably have to wait many years, perhaps decades, to read Carney's book about his time as PM, or maybe someone else's book, someone who's on the inner circle of one or the other party. In the meantime, we can only guess based on what we see from the outside. Now, earlier, I spoke about an upcoming video that I'm currently working on, and that topic is quite related to this one. And I'm going to be exploring the financial viability of a new pipeline, and why I think the Carney government might proceed with it anyway, even if it's a waste of money. Now, if you don't want to miss that, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free, and I appreciate the support.